Everybody, it is March 25th. It is the launch of the newest expansion, DLC, or whatever you want to call it, for Archeage, the game that said you'd never have to spend any more money, but here we are. I'm not going to rehash or retread that land. So right now, I know the EU servers are up. North America is still in progress, and they said it was a downtime about 5 hours. I'm expecting 6 based on how it went for the EU. But they just released the patch notes. We had a kind of a preview of these based on interpreting some of the Korean patch notes. As you remember, we're about anywhere between 4 to 6 months behind Korea. But let's really get into this because there is a lot of information and a lot of changes inside of here. So, the expansion is called the Akasch Invasion. So it really is, and I guess a continuation on what was going on in the Mithrin Gorge. So let's kind of get into this. Let's walk through this. I will encourage everybody to read the patch notes, and I'll link them down below. There is a lot of data in here. I'm not going to cover it all in this video as it is. I think this is going to be a long one, but let's jump into it. Let's start in the most simple place. There is a new zone as part of this. It is connected adjacent to the Mithrin Gorge. It is the Ipnaya, we're going to butcher this all video, Ipnaya Ridge. This is a net new zone. They recommend, ancestral level 32 or higher, which is weird because those ancestral levels they recommend and don't really equate to the difficulty of the enemies, but I'm expecting them to be at least as difficult as the NPCs in Mithrin Gorge, if not a little bit harder. And if anybody in there, farming them is definitely a little bit more work than some of the mobs in the garden, etc. So the big feature in this zone, I'm really going to kind of walk through. If you follow the patch notes yourself, I'll kind of walk through them in a very linear fashion, and I'll editorialize a little bit here and there. But some of this stuff, guys, is going to require a follow-up video because I don't even know how some of this is going to work in practice. And until we kind of see it ourselves and get to experience it, it's going to be a little bit of guesswork based on, past experiences. So the key feature of this new zone, and it seems to be anytime you introduce a new zone, there's something unique in it. It's not just zone, here's some mobs, here's some quests, there's a mechanic, whatever. So in this case, there's the Akasch Invasion. So on the off days, so the days that we normally have other the days we have normal content, right? Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, where you have different bosses spawning. You have Wednesday, which is siege day, and your days of Monday, Friday, Saturday were off days, right? The only thing really going on would be stuff that would spawn daily, like Jola, Main and Glen, Abyssal, etc. So now on those days, 9:30 p.m. server time, so Monday, Friday, Saturday, 9:30 p.m. server time, you're going to have this invasion that takes place for 40 minutes. This is really important. So it's a limited event in the sense of you can have 125 players east, 125 players west, and 50 pirates in this event, right? The portals open to the invasion, very similar to how they open up at various places for Abyssal. In this case, though, they only open up in the respective capitals, so Marianople, etc. During this event, it's very much the players versus the NPCs. Basically, the first to reach 15,000 points wins. And I'll put some data on here. And you achieve these points in different fashions. So you complete quests. Every time a player completes a quest, you get 3 points. Every time you kill one of the monsters, you get 180 points. And then that's from the player perspective. Now, if you look at from the monster perspective, every time that a player dies to them, they gain 5 points. Anytime they have an area, they keep an area, they'll gain 6 points, for, I think, every 5 seconds for a minute. So you really want to make sure you would clear them out. And then every time for that 1 minute increments, it basically starts multiplying, right? And once again, I'll have a table here but really it's encouraging everybody to move around and to defeat these monsters, because there's a good and a bad thing here, right? If you defeat the monsters, we hit that 15,000. It spawns a merchant, which you can buy stuff based on the tokens you've received from doing the quests, the monsters, etc. However, if the player side fails, it provides a buff to all the world bosses the next day, i.e. Black Dragon, Kraken, Charybdis, Leviathan, etc. No idea what that buff is, but it says it's going to make them much more difficult. So, it's kind of a stick, a stick in the sense of, you need to do this content. Otherwise, it's going to try to make doing the other content that much harder. So I think that's pretty interesting. What that actually works, equates to from a difficulty perspective, we're going to have to wait and see. So working our way through these patch notes, some new story quests. In this case, there's 37 new story quests. I'm personally still behind when it comes to these. I'm still in the garden. I'm actually stuck on the Antlion piece. It's just a pain in the butt. And I really haven't doubled down trying to figure out how to defeat that part of the story quest. But for those working through that, there are 37 new quests as part of this new expansion. They start in the Crimson Watch camp in Mithrin Gorge, so go look there. Speaking of quests, the second set of quests, which are really, I would say, the most unknown feature, or one of the most unknown features in Archeage, are the Chronicle quests. Anytime I mention these to people, they're like, what are you talking about, right? So hit Shift L on your keyboard and you'll see these quests. I think they're really interesting. Leading up to the current expansion, they really told the story of Rangora and Morpheus and how firearms came to Erenor, right? We knew that they had cannons, but this kind of tells how rifles came to be. So it was really interesting. There are some interesting story bits here, and this has always been my frustration with this game, is some of the mechanics and stuff are great, but the story's always kind of sucked, and it's always been an afterthought. So if you look at where the story was really good, some of the main story stuff is good, some of the Chronicle stuff is great, but some of the stuff around like the Hereafter quests, those are really interesting for like the story geek in me. So I'm interested to how these quests are going to be, how the Chronicle quests are going to be in this case, but definitely worth checking out. There are some titles that can be unlocked in there, but if you're looking for something to do that's not a normal grind, hit Shift L and take a look. So let's get into what everybody is really waiting for when it comes to this expansion, right? Which is the Gunslinger, which, from the face of it, sounds really, really interesting. Guns are always interesting. I'm going to probably do a separate complete video about the Gunslinger, because there's a lot of information here. But let's really, at a high level, let's talk about it really quick. So rifles are a new ranged weapon. They're going to be all the way down in the Explorer crates for the newbies, all the way up to Crafted Erenor. They drop. They're going to drop from all the same places you'd already see bows, so the dungeons, world bosses, etc. They will be dropping from one-hand Hiram, unidentified Hiram items. So the normal places you would camp those, you'd be able to get them from. You'll also be able to buy those with Aurorian bonds and the other places you could buy. You can now buy those unidentified or identified pieces. It's going to be very interesting how they change the meta. Rifles do have a shorter range than bows, but they have other effects, including collateral damage. So I'm really interested to see how that's going to work out. Stay tuned for a separate video there, because it is just, this video already is going to be a mile long, and I'd like to get in there and play around with it a little bit before I give my 2 cents. So moving on, the second thing, which I think is really interesting and most people weren't really talking about, is the artifact system that is coming into the game. So the idea here is, and this is a lot going on, I may have to do a separate breakout on this as well. Please put in the comments if you have any questions or follow-ups on this. So the concept here is the actual slots themselves, separate from your equipment, you'll be able to enhance. So just like your gear might have different levels, now your slot will as well. What this does is the slot will enhance the item equipped to it. So it'll add gear score, etc. The items to do this all drop in the new zone. either via quests, tokens, or drops from bosses. As they level up, they'll basically need to be, I don't want to say awakened, but there's rune stones that drop, or you can purchase, that awaken them. As they get to a certain level, they will introduce new synthesis effects. On top of this, there are set effects, in the sense of, as you level up enough of the slots, and you achieve a certain number of total levels, I guess. So like 52, 88, 124 spread across, and I'll have a table here to kind of explain that. You'll unlock different effects, and this really comes down to things such as extra hit points, toughness, magic, physical defense, etc. So it's a net additive effect to the gear you already have. So pretty interesting. Another place to really focus your time to improve your character. So again, there's a lot going on here. I may have to do a separate video, but it's something to start being aware of. When you click on a slot, it'll actually show you a table, and you can actually look through that. So I'm going to probably do a follow-up video early next week that's going to talk specifically about the gunslinger and the artifact system going on, because there is a lot going on here. Something to be aware of as you level up these slots, and as they gain synthesis effects, very similar to your armor, your Hiram or Erenor gear you already have, is the stat you get is random. We all know what that means, more serendipity stones. So I very much hope you save them, because, we're going to be praying to range Jesus all over again. So moving on to some quick hit items through the patch notes, is they're raising the ancestral level to 70. I'm not really sure what they're accomplishing here, unless they're flattening out the experience curve. As it is, it's a lot of experience just to get, say from 38 to 39 or 39 to 40. Going to 70 is great, but I can't see that many people getting anywhere near there. So it doesn't say in the notes, but I'm wondering if they're going to change the experience requirements to get, from 40 to 50 to 50 to 60, etc. So we'll see what that looks like, but something to be aware of. They also are introducing what they're calling the Halcyona skirmish arena. I'm sorry. This is a min 20, 50 player max free-for-all equalized arena. So that's the key thing, is everybody comes in, they're going to be leveled up, leveled down, so everybody's equivalent. I like the idea of what they're doing here. The idea, what they're finally introducing, is what they're calling the Grudge Veil, which is something that will kill you if you stay in the starting area. We all know everybody likes to go and do an AFK Halsey to get, the raid war, to get the labor pod. I really wish they will introduce this into all those events to keep people from just trying to AFK through content and getting the rewards. Look, it's a lot more fun when people participate, rather than having a half or 2/3 of the people just sitting in the starting area. So really happy to see that in this arena. And I'll include the notes below. There is a lot of things going on here, but what I will say is I really hope that the idea of this Grudge Veil makes its way to the rest of the content, like regular houses. The next one is party duels, and these is really something that people have been asking for a while. So instead of just doing one-on-one, you're gonna have two parties, start a duel. Very obvious, but it allows for something that people have asked for a while. The ability to set up interesting team battles, do some practice for PvP, etc. So it is exactly what you think it is. You have two parties, you start a duel, there you go. A big one here that's further down the patch notes is the hero respawn spot. So what this does is allow the hero to claim a Nui. It can be an enemy Nui for their own purposes. So when people die, they have an option of respawning in their normal spot. Factions will always have one, so they can't all be claimed by the other factions, or the one that was claimed by the hero. And there's a limited number of that the hero can claim every week, and the different levels of hero have a different number. But what this allows is, from a strategic perspective, allows people to respawn on a different part of the map. But the bigger thing is, if you respawn there, is you don't get rebirth trauma or RT, and you get a better Nui's constellation buff. This is going to very much change the meta when it comes to fights such as like Black Dragon, where one of the key things you might do is, PvP to disrupt the other side, to put them all on RT so you can actually do Black Dragon without them being able to effectively disrupt the event, right? Because if you have RT on some of these bosses, they will one-shot kill you. So the fact that you no longer have RT is going to make that very, very interesting. And I'm going to have to wait to see what it looks like in practice, but you're now going to have potential fights over the Newies. And I'm not sure how that's going to work. And how do you take one over? Because it's technically a peace area. So, or how you defend it. So that's going to be really interesting. So, I mean, and the notes don't really do a good job of explaining that. So I'm going to have to see how that works in practice after we have hero elections here in the next couple weeks. So look for this one. I think it's going to add a strategic element, what I'm interested in, but how it's going to work in practice is definitely going to be the big question mark. So let's bang out another quick hit items here that go through these patch notes. This video is already getting super long, but I think it's important to get through this stuff. So there's going to be the Rotten Specialties merchant. So this is a merchant that has a bag. It'll put some allows you to put stuff that you may have grown that's low profit now, not using recipes anymore. You put it in there, you turn into him, you get some rewards, guild coins, etc. There's the costume achievements. There's a whole bunch of different costume achievements that have been entered into the game. The big one out of there is if you actually get them all, you actually can get a costume awakening scroll that you can use to awaken your costume, which gives it a nice buff. That's pretty interesting. Looks like a lot of work. For those of you that are into the costumes, though, I think it's a cool something cool to work on with those costumes. So stay tuned there. So the next one, and something people have been asking for, is the race change elixir. This is something that's purely cosmetic, similar to the costume slot works. It only changes your looks. You don't gain any of the abilities, etc., that come from being of that other race. And it is it's a buff, but it does last a while, but it is a buff that you can then remove. When you use the elixir, you actually gain a salon certificate so you can change what you look like. If you look through these, keep going through these patch notes, you can see there are a ton of bug fixes and other things as part of this. So that's a really good sign that they're really fixing some of these niggling things. Something that is really buried in here as a big add is now farmhands are going to be able to do bundles, right? So it's yet another thing that you might have been using on your farm that you can now put in your virtual farm, right? You can get all those bundles done. So this is an exceptional addition from the farmhand perspective. So guys, this is really it. This is what I really wanted to cover. There is a lot in here, and again, I will highly encourage you to read the patch notes yourself. Will be a separate video next week, hopefully next week, I'm going to go through the gunslinger, my personal opinions there, as well as the slot enhancement system, because again, it is a lot and I really want to see how it works in practice, so I can actually take some video of that in game and we can kind of walk through that. I'm also going to be doing a walkthrough now of the trade system, because after merge, getting land to actually put farmhands down was a bit of a challenge, so that kind of put things behind schedule. So we'll get that done too. So hopefully you guys found this interesting, and hope to see. I know I've run into a number of you guys online. Hope to see you guys online, and we'll see how this new content works out. So guys, get out there. Let's get it done. Thanks everybody.